Your wish is my command. Today's video is how to digitize your artwork. So if that's something that you were wondering about after last week's video, today's video is a part 1 to last week's part 2. If you're new here, I'm Annie, a professional artist. I've been doing this for 10 years. I work from my home studio alongside motherhood, and I work in art licensing, and I also, from my home studio, I do commissions and I sell art prints all around the world and nationwide. One of my biggest goals in this YouTube channel is to make the journey easier for you. I did not realize that digitizing your artwork was also a huge stumbling block among many artists, but I should have known that because it was a huge stumbling block for me. It took me like close to 3 years maybe to finally realize that I needed to buy a scanner. That's so embarrassing. But not just embarrassing, I'm so bummed that it took me that long to realize that I should have been doing that, and I didn't start doing it until I got into art licensing. You don't realize that these things are important until you're like, oh my gosh, I should have been doing that a long time ago. I am going to show you how to digitize your artwork today. We're going to talk about the scanner that I use, how to do it, how to get it onto your computer, the editing. It's not super complicated. Scanning your artwork is one of those things that I tell artists all the time. If you are at all serious about your art business, then that is one of the first things that you should invest in, is a great scanner. I use the Epson V550. There's the Epson V600 and then the Epson V550. They range between $350 and $750. I'll leave the links to those below. And then as far as software goes, I edit my work in Photoshop. So if you are at all thinking about going into art licensing, if you're wanting to sell art prints, if you're wanting to share your work online, if you're wanting to pitch your portfolio in any way at all whatsoever, digitizing your work is gonna be how you do it. I hope you enjoy the video. Leave a comment below if you have any questions, and if you like what you're seeing and you're into this kind of thing, be sure to like and subscribe, and it would mean the world to me. So anyway, let's get into the video because I feel like I need to stop talking and just get to it. This is my setup. I have my scanner here. I actually don't keep this out all the time. If you saw my recent studio vlog, I was like, my scanner's out because I have a whole pile of artwork to scan, and if I leave it out, I'll get to it, and guess who hasn't gotten to it? Me! I do have a ton of pieces to scan in right now. If I leave it out, surely I will get to it. So when I'm not using it, I actually do keep it in my closet. It's small enough to do that, but when it's out, it doesn't take up a ton of space either. So when I do have a lot of licensing collections that I'm working on, I'm scanning in a lot of art. In any given week, I do keep this out just for convenience, but this is the scanner. It's the Epson Perfection V550 Photo. And today I'm actually gonna scan in this piece. This is one of the paintings on the tutorial that I showed you guys a couple weeks ago. Not to be distracted or anything, but I'm gonna show you what I have because these are so pretty. Okay. A couple weeks ago, I was painting with my daughters. We painted these little flowers here in watercolor. That's sweet. And then we just painted a bunch of landscapes and stuff. I love them. I think they turned out so pretty. So fun. This is not a video for me to show you my art, but here's a whole sheet of, it's so bright in here. It's a whole sheet of landscapes. I'm so excited to do something with those. So anyway, I've been meaning to scan those into my computer forever. And I have to do it because I think when I do, I'm gonna make some really pretty prints out of it. I paint watercolor too. I'm not just an acrylic girl. All right, anyway, enough with the distractions. Time to scan our art. So basically, to scan your art, you lift up the lid, put your artwork in, and then you close the lid, and then you hit scan. No, I'm kidding. I'll be better than that. You want to make sure the scanning bed's always clean, because if it's not, it does get like dust particles and stuff. This is a 9x12 scanning bed, so it can scan 9x12 papers, but the thing is you can also scan larger pieces. I scan up to 16x20 and I scan in 4 sections and then piece them together in Photoshop, which is a really easy process. So you can scan 11x14 paintings on here by just scanning one and then another side and then stitch them together in Photoshop. So that was something that I was a little confused about when I was first buying the scanner. I was like looking for scanners that were like had huge scanning beds, and I'm like, how are all these artists scanning their artwork on such a small scanner? But it's because we scan them in pieces and then stitch them together, which is really, really simple. So that's the scanning bed. You just place your artwork in, make sure it's straight, and you're good to go. And then really that's all that's to it. I'm gonna pull up my computer here and I'm gonna show you the scanning software. Oh, another note on the topic of when to invest in your business and when to go big and when to not. In terms of a scanner, I know many artists have been like, oh, I use my scanner attached to my printer and it's been fine and it works. And well, I did that too. When I started my business, I was 21 and a new mom, and I was 22 and a new mom, and I did not have the money to spend $300 on a scanner. So 3 years in is when I bought this one. Before that, I just used a scanner that we had attached to our printer, and the scans were so bad. So maybe you have had better luck with your printer scanner, but if you are at a point where you're wanting to take your artwork seriously and you really do feel like there's potential in your work and you want to take it somewhere, I highly recommend investing in a scanner. They're $350 and they will pay you back tenfold if you're serious about this, because the images that you get from an Epson scanner are beyond what a lower quality scanner can get. The investment's worth it and it's going to pay back tenfold. A great print starts with a great image, and this is how you get a great image. And that's the scanner. That's on that. Now I'll take you over to my computer. So I'm going to hit scan here. There we go. She's scanning. That's weird. I never call her a she. The scanner is scanning. It's not a she, it's an it. So I'm actually going to show you a little trick too while we're scanning this. Sometimes the canvas texture is really prominent on your images, and it's usually on darker artwork where it shows up the most. So what you can do to eliminate the texture is you're going to want to scan your artwork twice, and you're going to do it once one way, and then the second scan is actually you're gonna flip it around, do like a little 180, and then you're gonna scan it that way. And then we're gonna hit scan, and I'll show you the settings that I used on my scans today so that you can see what I do. I'm gonna open the scanner software here on my computer so that you can see what we're working with. So we have the scanner, scan settings, mode. These are all the main settings, and we have the document source, which is obviously the scanner glass, and reflective, document type, and then the image type. You have 24, 48-bit color. Basically, the difference between those is just going to be how much data information is in your image file. So 24-bit isn't going to get quite as much color information as a 48-bit would. Honestly, most of your needs are going to be covered by the 24-bit, but in order to get the highest quality image as you can go to the 48-bit. It is a higher file size, but for scanning artwork and for reproduction, art prints, and professional printing, you can do the 48-bit, but you can also play around and see what works for you. And then this is set at 200 DPI. Most of the time I scan at 600 DPI, but 300 DPI is also sufficient. So with DPIs, dots per image. So again, it's just the amount of data that is going to be collected for the image. And if you have 300 dots per inch, there's obviously not going to be as much data collected as if you were to have 600 dots per inch. So for reproduction art prints, and for art licensing, 300 DPI is usually going to be sufficient, but I usually do 600 DPI. Basically, the higher the DPI, the higher the resolution is going to be. It's like if you have really small Legos versus the really big blocks. When you have those small blocks, you can get more detail, if that makes sense. So that's DPI in a nutshell. For the most part, I use 600, so I like to get as high resolution as I can. You want to make sure you get between 300 and 600 DPI so that you can expand and enlarge your artwork. Because if you're scanning in at like 72 DPI, then you are going to have such pixelated images and it's not going to be good. So that's another thing. There have been times when I didn't check the settings, or like I scanned in wrong, or I worked on a file that was 72 DPI and I was like, what the heck is going on with this? It is such bad quality. You just want to make sure you're working in 300 or 600. If you go beyond that, it would be for like mural work, or like if you are doing some humongous, massive piece of artwork. But most of the time we're not doing that. So anyway, if you are, that's when you'd want to go higher with the DPI. So we're gonna put this up to 600, high quality scan, color management. I don't ever do anything with this. I just keep it at what it is because that always works. And then thumbnail options, I keep that at what it is too. And then we're gonna do TIFF. You can do JPEG, PNG, or TIFF. And for scanning art images, you're gonna wanna use TIFF because TIFF is gonna be not gonna have any compression of your image. It's gonna keep all of the data as it is. JPEG will compress your file. So we don't want any file compression because we wanna be able to edit and work with color management and all of that. So TIFF is the best way to go. It is a bigger file size. So if you do need to scale down at any point in the road, you can, but we want to start with the highest quality that we possibly can. So we're going to use TIFF. We are going to name our file Spring Bouquet Tutorial. No, I'm just going to name it Spring Bouquet. And we're going to hit OK, and then we're going to hit scan, and then we wait. So my scan's actually finished. Next, we're gonna take these images, bring them into Photoshop, and we're gonna adjust color if needed. If the texture of the canvas is showing in a little too much with your scan, I'm gonna show you how to remove that. I can also show you how to stitch pieces together if you need to. This piece in particular, I could get in one scan, so I won't need to stitch anything together, but I can chop it in half and show you show you how I would do that. We're just going to move into the editing side of digitizing your artwork and finalizing the file. I am going to open Photoshop. Photoshop. Whoop. Photoshop. There we go. Okay, we are going to open our two images, which are right on my desktop here. This first up here, I'm going to show you how to minimize the texture on your artwork if you have the texture. And this is why we did those two scans. And so that's what we're going to do in the first step here. I'm going to drag this image over to this here. Whoops. Okay. I made a mistake here. The first image that I did, I scanned in at 300 DPI. It was much smaller, or 200 actually. Whoops, but this is just for demonstration purposes only. So we're gonna take this, we're gonna right click. I'm gonna take this, we're gonna edit, transform, rotate 180 degrees. We're gonna select both of our layers here. They should both be on top of each other like that. So we're gonna select both of our layers again. We're gonna go to Edit, Auto Align Layers. We're gonna go Auto, we're gonna hit OK. And they should be auto aligned, just like that. I'm gonna hit, and then we're gonna zoom in and you're gonna see that the texture is there. Prepare to be amazed. This texture really is not bad. I recently did a collection that had a lot of dark and moody colors. Every scan that I did was driving me nuts because it was so, it just reflected every single detail of the art and was so distracting to the image. So it's moments like those where you really want to go in and make sure that you minimize the canvas texture as much as you can. Because if you don't, if you're doing reproduction art prints or if you're designing for products, then that texture on the original artwork and scan of the image is going to be so distracting on the final product or art print. So that's why we do that. So anyway, I'm going to go back into Photoshop here, and then we're going to change this top layer. We're going to change the blend mode to darken, and then it minimizes the texture. So my mic died, but this is a quick little voiceover. It didn't die for too long, but this is me showing you on this. I was just going over and showing you the before and after of before I minimized the texture and then after. And I love that you can still see the painterly style of the original painting. So it minimizes basically just the distraction of the texture. Like sometimes there's just a little too much glare, and doing this in your scans will basically just eliminate the distracting parts of the image. So anyway, next we are going to fix the crop. So you can see I'm going to flatten this here, but the crop of the scan is just a little too close to the florals. So we're gonna use Photoshop Expand, the Generative Expand, and see how that works out. This is so finicky. Sometimes it's great, sometimes it's not, but this time I was actually a little surprised. So I'm just gonna use the Generative Expand to bring the background out so that we have more of a border and breathing space around my florals there. This turned out so cool. So let me show you. So this is the Generative Expand. You can see it's obviously not perfect, but that's okay because, oh my goodness. So this is, I'm gonna flatten these two here. This is the before. This is the after. So obviously we have an issue here. I just realized I have to, gonna flatten that. We're gonna use the stamp tool. Okay, so we're gonna increase the size here. Use Option click, and then we're gonna find our source to kind of go over and use the stamp tool. So again, I'm gonna reposition the source of the stamp. So Option click, and then we're going to go over that line here is what I'm fixing. That is so fun. I'm super impressed. That was really cool. So I'm going to go over kind of, and basically this next, what I'm doing now is basically just kind of softening any type of like hard lines to make sure that this Generative Expand blends in seamlessly with the rest of the print. So that's what we're doing. I'm gonna use the spot healing and kind of just go over, see what that does. Yeah, this looks so good. I'm super impressed. You cannot even tell that it wasn't the original paint. This is so exciting. This is so cool. I'm blown away. So that covers how to fix the texture in your image if you're having a little bit too much texture in your scan. The next part is if you're scanning something that's a little larger than 9 by 12, if you're scanning like 11 by 14 or 16 by 20, I'm going to show you how to stitch a piece together in Photoshop, and it's super easy. And we're just going to use that auto align feature again to piece our artwork together. So that's what we're going to do next. So we are going to pretend that we got the scan with 2 scans, even though it was just 1 scan. This image was just 1 scan, but we're going to pretend that it was 2, and we're going to stitch it together. So we are going to put both of our scans in over top of each other so that we have 2 layers. So we're going to pretend that background layer is scan 1, the top layer is scan 2. and then we're gonna use the auto align feature. But before we do the auto align feature, you want to make sure both layers are selected or else it's not gonna work. And then we're gonna zoom in here and I'm gonna show you they are in fact not aligned, but we'll zoom out there. You wanna select auto align and then hit collage and then click OK and zoom in. Boom, magic. How cool is that? Photoshop is amazing. That's so cool. So that is how you stitch photos together in Photoshop. I'm gonna go ahead and look at my art print here. And I'm just gonna compare it to what I see on my computer. So based on what I'm looking at here, I don't know if you'll be able to see this, but here's the computer versus the original image. And I'm seeing on the computer, on the scan, the reds are a little too dark. And so basically, I think I'm just gonna soften the reds a little bit. And I'm gonna do that by going into adjustments, hue and saturation. I'm gonna click reds here and I'm going to up the saturation. I'm gonna up the lightness a little bit. I'm gonna do that. And then I think I'm gonna play around with this dial here with the hue and saturation. Yeah. Okay. Again, these adjustments are so minor, but the yellows also tend to kind of scan a little funny. So I'm gonna play around with this here. Make sure the yellows are saturated. Yeah. Play around and just play around with the dial here until you get it the way that you like it. And then another adjustment I'm going to play around with are the levels. I'm going to make it a little bit brighter by playing with this middle level here, and I'm going to up the highlights a little teeny tiny bit. But that is pretty much it. I think I kind of just play around and make little minor tweaks until I feel like it looks good and until I'm liking the image and we're happy with it. So anyway, there we go. We are done. That is how you digitize your artwork. We're just gonna save our file and so that we can keep it in our archives so you have it for later. So we're gonna hit File, Save As. The format is TIFF. The title is Spring Bouquet, and I'm going to save it in my Annie Quigley art folder, and I'm just going to save it here for now, and I'm going to go back. Actually, no. I will put it where it's supposed to go. I think I'll put it in this folder, my working portfolio. No compression. None of that. We don't want any compression, but this is all good to go. We're just gonna hit OK. And then I'm gonna go to that folder and it is right here waiting for us. So fun to see, guys. Super easy. I hope you guys found that tutorial super helpful. My mic is on like 2% battery life at this point, so I'm gonna wrap up this video and call it a day. But this is what we're working with here. Isn't that so fun? So this is the final image, and this is what the original is. So you can see that's how we digitize our artwork. The process is super easy. I scan everything up to 16 by 20. If I have any artwork that's over 16 by 20, I do take pictures of it, but that's a tutorial for another day. I don't know if I'm gonna make a video on that one because I don't love photographing my artwork. I like to scan it whenever possible. And if I do in the future have a collection that is like fully larger than 16 by 20, I would probably get it professionally scanned. The thing that I love about scanning is it gives consistency across all of your files. With photographing, unless you're photographing in a studio with studio lighting, it's not going to be consistent. And I don't have that. I don't have studio lighting. I just have my lovely little window light here. So I don't have that consistency with photographs, but I also don't paint a ton of paintings that are larger than 16 by 20. And when I do, they're commissions. So that's a rundown how to digitize your artwork. So now you know the scanner that I use, the process, post-editing process and all that, how to adjust colors using Generative Expand in Photoshop, which is really cool. That was actually the best experience I've ever had with it. It's never worked that well for me. I'm glad I tried that out today. So you can play around with that too. Sometimes when with this image in particular, it didn't scan enough of the edges. So if I wanted to get the full image, then I could have done that in 2 separate scans, and I should have, but I didn't need to because Photoshop worked. So anyway, that's today's video. I hope it was so helpful. If you liked it, go ahead and give this video a like, and be sure to hit subscribe so you get notified for all future videos. And if you have any questions, again, leave a comment below. I'm more than happy to answer any questions that you have. Yeah, okay, bye for now. I'll see you guys soon.